Wonderful. Good evening. Those who are still queuing, could you please queue down that side? Thank you.
I don't think it's working yet.
No, you're on.
No, you have to hold it very closely to your lips, very close.
Hello.
That's it.
That's it.
Woo!
Talk right in the top.
Hello, my name is Margarita Moscoso, and my claim to fame is I'm a resident of the East Cliff. Good evening and welcome to this community meeting called to discuss the proposals by Bretts to expand their works at the port of Ramsgate. This is strictly a non-political gathering by all interested parties from residents and friends of Ramsgate. Without further ado, I will hand over to John Davis, who's currently talking, Chair of the Friends of Ramsgate, Seafront.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few technical procedural points. Obviously, I think we're all aware that in the event of a fire, that's the way out. However, should there be any emergency, there is a fire exit there and an emergency exit there. There is one through by the ladies. Just to make you also aware, the meeting is being filmed, both by the media and by representatives of the community. If anybody has any issue with being filmed, be aware that that is going on, and you may wish to either retreat to the back of the room, or but that's the situation, and unfortunately we can't not film this. Just to set the scene, the meeting is, as we're aware, about the toxic threat to our seafront environment. Out of interest, how many in the room were aware or around, because we do have a lot of newcomers and things, when we faced the threat from O'Reilly? Most people, that's good, so you'll be aware of the issues that were at hand. For those of you that aren't, you will be enlightened as we go on. This situation that we face is far, far more serious than we faced with O'Reilly, which was simply a set of proposals. This is a procedure that has been going on under the radar without proper consultation, and that's why we all need to be aware and why we called the meeting this evening. However, breaking news this afternoon, and some of you will have seen the BBC bulletin a little while ago, is about freight movements that are also, there has been a secret agenda that is going to be revealed this evening by one of our speakers, and is a very, also piled on top of threats, is an incredibly serious threat to our community, our leisure facilities and our seafront. With no more ado, I'm going to pass you over to the first speaker, which is John Walker, who's chair of the Ramsgate Society, and he's going to talk about what their view is of the Bretts proposals and what they have done so far. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Good evening. I've lost my voice this week, so I can hardly speak. Can you hear me using this microphone? Well, that's good. Can I just, before I start, ask how many people... Sorry? Oh, well, I'm speaking... Yeah, do you want to tell you that? How many people here, matter of interest, are members of the Ramsgate Society? Ah, I knew I should have brought some application forms. Too late now. Anyway, we first heard this proposal a couple of weeks ago. I gather it's been going on for a considerable length of time, but and people are obviously understandably getting quite emotional about it, and one can understand that. But in the Ramsgate Society, what we wanted to focus on were the planning issues, because that's what is going to decide the outcome of this application. So we have made a submission to KCC setting out our views, and I thought, just to set this meeting going tonight, if I just read, it won't take me 3 minutes, I don't think. If I just read what our submission is, I hope it captures the main points, and that will give some food for thought as the meeting develops. So what we said is this: the inshore waters of Kent have an exceptionally rich natural heritage. Almost the entire coast falls within a marine protection area, with the majority of the inshore seas being of European significance. This makes the Kent coast of outstanding importance both within the UK and internationally. 3 marine conservation zones were designated in 2013, and the port is adjacent to one of these. This profusion of designations not only demonstrates the importance of this coast, but the wide range of habitats and species which it supports. The coast around the port is protected by the following local, national and international designations. It is a marine protection area, it is a marine conservation zone, it's a local nature reserve, it's a national nature reserve, it's a Natura 2000, which is a designation that was given in 2000. It's a Ramsar site, which is an international designation. That's the place that the conference took place. It's a site of special scientific interest, and it's a special area of conservation and a special protection area. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 special protections on the coast around where the site is. So in our view, it's inconceivable that this application can be determined without a full environmental impact assessment and a habitats regulation assessment. The KCC planning website indicates that neither of these essential requirements have been met. We recommend, therefore, that the consultation period be paused until the planning authority has been provided with these reports, and that the consultation period recommences when this information is available. I think we need to see what the environmental impact assessment says. Under the Pollution Prevention Control Act of 1999, there should be, and I quote, no visible emissions from any source beyond the site boundary. In view of the highly sensitive nature of the Peckwell Bay SSSI, it would be essential that there should be an absolute requirement to comply with this legal obligation, and full details of how this is to be achieved should be part of the application. Unlike the importation of aggregates, neither concrete batching or sand and aggregate washing are authorised port activities. That's the legal definition. This application, therefore, is for an unauthorised use and must comply fully with strict environmental regulations. Whilst many of us want the Port of Ramsgate to be a viable business and an asset to the local economy, we do not want to see this at the expense of every local, national and international statutory protection for designated sites such as Peckwell Bay. If Ramsgate is to flourish, it needs to create a high quality environment to attract the businesses and visitors on which our local economy depends. So that was our statement to the planning people. We've had no acknowledgement yet, no doubt they will take it into account. So that's the position of the Ramsgate Society, and I hope that's helpful when the general discussion broadens out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I think that's quite enlightening so far, and it certainly clarifies the position of your organisation, which also backs up the fact that Ramsgate Town Council have actually made a formal objection and observations and requested a full habitat regulation assessment. So thank you to the Town Council, and there are councillors in the room, and thank you for the support. I think it's important that we say at this point as well that this is an apolitical cross-party community initiative. This is no party. We do not have space in this community situation to be bickering or partisan arguments, irrespective of our political beliefs or our stance on other issues. It is vital that we stand united as a community on this. Please. I'm now going to take the opportunity to pass you over to someone known to an awful lot of you, for one reason or another. Either her thespian behaviour or her excellent campaigning and work on a project in the town. Janet Fielding.
Thank you, John. I live on the West Cliff. I overlook the Brett's site. And despite what it says in Brett's application to KCC, I can see the site, and I am within 500 metres, as is the start of the Ramsar site, etc., etc., etc. So when this permission was given by TDC for the development to go ahead in 2010 and allowing Brett to install the cement batching plant, there should have been a habitat regulation assessment. There was not. I think that leaves Thanet District Council open to a legal challenge on the issue. It doesn't mean that it is absolutely lawful. Now, the reason why I raised the question of lawfulness is both TDC and KCC are very keen on telling us that it's a general permitted development order, and they seem to imply that that means anything goes. Well, no, it doesn't quite. Kent County Council have informed us that the local and district councils are powerless in the face of a general permitted development order because it comes from central government. Not quite. There are restrictions, and one of those restrictions is a height restriction of 15 metres, and another is the habitat regulation assessment. Now, what KCC is saying to us is that all they're interested in with this application is whether or not it is lawful. So therefore, it doesn't matter whether it's ugly, it doesn't matter that it'll screw up the regeneration of Ramsgate, as indeed it will. It doesn't matter about any of that. Is it lawful? Well, the application is an interesting one in all sorts of ways and quite cunning. For instance, the photographs included seem to have been photoshopped so that the development looks as though it's miles away. And it also makes it look very small. But if you check the drawings that were also submitted with the planning application, they show a different story. The plans submitted include the current cement batching plant, and this is an issue that's dear to my own heart. I complained last year via Peter Campbell, who took the complaint up with TDC, who basically told us to get lost. Because I was walking on the Western Undercliff and I kept finding cement dust. I've shown several people some of it tonight. And I wondered where it was coming from. And then I found out that those two silos that had appeared on the Brett site a few years ago were cement batching plants. I had no idea beforehand because there'd been no community consultation. Anyway, coming back to the height requirement, 15 metres, right? If you exceed 15 metres, you're no longer under the general permitted development order. If you have a look at the drawings on the application, you will notice that the silo measurements go up to 14.1 metres. Above that is another bit of structure. And that structure, I estimate, is 2 metres. And I do this because Dennis Smith, who's here somewhere taking photographs, did some very good photographs of the site for me a couple of weeks ago. And I looked at the size of the silo and the ratio of that bit on the top to the rest of the silo, because I had those measurements. And lo and behold, it comes out at 2 metres. This means that the development was 16.1 metres. Now, Brett's mainly going to rely on the fact that it has been there for 4 years and therefore is legal. It's been there long enough. However, there is another piece of legislation which has amended Section 194 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990, which makes it an offence to provide false or misleading information or to withhold material information with intent to deceive. I am not alleging that that is what Brett has done. However, I would say that it certainly needs investigation. Section 193, in bracket 7, paragraph 7, enables the council to revoke at any time a certificate if it may have been issued as a result of false or misleading information. I think that any of us here are curious as to why that 2-metre top bit of the silo is not in the dimensions. What on earth could be the reason? So I believe that that, coupled with Thanet District Council's failure to advise Natural England of the need for habitat regulation assessment in 2010, gives us an excellent grounds for a legal challenge. I would like to propose that we start a fighting fund to obtain a legal opinion from a very scary lawyer. John used one in Canterbury on a development and knows of somebody who'd be suitably scary. And I want to say that this has been a last-minute scramble by all of us, because it's only thanks to Peter Campbell, that we knew it was happening at all. And thank you, Peter. I would ask you all to follow the Nothing Concrete at Port Ramsgate Facebook page, because it will contain, over the ensuing weeks, calls to action. I would like you please to contact me at this meeting. Come up to me if you, like me, have made earlier protests about the cement batching plant that is there at the moment. So if you have, please contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Janet. Quite a lot of information, and there's more to come. So there's obviously a lot of food for thought, and also this isn't a lecture, so there will be an opportunity for questions, but the speakers will be taking them at the end. Unfortunately, we also don't have roaming mics, so you may need to project your voice, given that the lead wasn't as long as we thought. In addition to what Janet said, by the way, there are various legal challenges that can be made, because the extension to the area that Brett's are requiring is an additional 2 acres of the port. That means that in total, plus the area that they already occupy, there's something like 15,000 square feet minimum occupied. Permitted development rights only apply, and without getting too technical, you have various classes of operation. Batching plant are a Part B operation, as is aggregate washing and grading. 2 Part B operations on a site of more than 10,000 square feet requires unequivocally, in law, as required by the Secretary of State, an environmental impact assessment. That then means that any operation requiring an environmental impact assessment ceases to become permitted development. So it's our role as a community to know this fact and to get the legal support that we need to insist that the law is adhered to, rather than these under the carpet, under the radar schemes with no public consultation go on. And again, thank you, Peter Campbell, for bringing this to the attention of the community. And I think it's worth saying that we had very, very short notice to act on this. Thank you to Stuart Piper as well, because he has added to Peter's motion at the council, and thanks to these 2 gentlemen, the objection from Ramsgate Town Council was put together. I think that's a very good example of cross-party working, because you've got two varying sets of beliefs, but working together in the community's interest. Without wishing to bore you any further with the detail that I'm waffling about, I'm now going to pass you over to our next speaker. In fact, she's not on the top table, but I'm going to ask Becky to speak at this point, because she's been doing an awful lot of research and I think has got a few things that she'd like to say. She's just a little bit shy and retiring and didn't want to sit up the front.
I come from a teaching background, so I'm not used to using these, and the first thing I'd obviously need to do is give you a telling off for something, and then we go to something nice, and then I give you another telling off. I didn't realise I could get quite so interested and intrigued by the reading of legislation, but I have over the last 2 weeks while I've been working, which has been quite difficult. But I think me and Janet are bulls, dogs with bones, and so I have read, and if the application has presently got in for the gravel washing blah 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 plant, I would send it back and say could do better, because basically there are major holes in it. The piece of legislation I looked at was the Town and Country Planning Act Environmental Impact Assessment Regulations 2016, and I read that and I think it needs to be thrown out for several reasons. One is the sand batching plant has been put into this bid. I don't understand that. It's like a different big piece of GCSE work has suddenly been put in this bid. I don't understand that, but it's there. If something goes over 1,000 square metres, then automatically it needs an environmental impact assessment. If it's a change of activity, and I think that originally gravel was brought into the pool and taken out of the pool. That's what pools do. Stuff gets delivered, stuff goes out, stuff comes in, stuff goes back. That is a change of activity to an industrial process. So it needs a throwing out again. It needs a full application. This is a minor application, and when I spoke to James Bickle on my balcony, because I can also see the lovely towers, I said I needed to fill in more forms to change the colour of my house. James Bickle is the planning officer at KCC, who's the case officer who's picking up the gravel washing plant thing. He wouldn't speak to me the second time. I think he went and hid under his desk. I wasn't very polite. He told me they were following the regulations, the law, so I went back and looked at the law, and then I wanted some things clarified. At that point, he wouldn't have a conversation with me. He also told me to contact Natural England. They've been great. The other thing in the bid that's quite strange is the day after the Ramsgate Town Council meeting, which I believe was on the 12th, 2 additional pieces of paper were uploaded to that bid. So I'm automatically thinking, my God, something's not right here. The first one is a letter, I think, dated in 2008, and it's a communication between somebody in TDC and the then Harbour Master. And basically, the gist of the letter is you've got all the permissions you need, I'll send you an email, and the Harbour Master is going to be responsible for undertaking an environmental report. Now, the email's not uploaded and the report isn't there either. So I think we need to see that environmental report. We need to see what the Harbour Master said about that sand batching plant. I'd also like to know why the Harbour Master thought he was qualified to undertake that, because that would be asking me to split an atom. I'll go to Janet. They are very clever, because the plans for the sand batching plant, I'm not quite sure why they're there, whether they're trying to sneak that in under the same plant, are actually written in German. It's a set of German plans, but at the bottom in English are the words "not to scale." Now, I looked at the dimensions at the side of the two things, and I reckon up the side it does say 15 metres and something, but I reckon that's another, and I'm going to use the word, hideous way of trying to not be honest about things. And you know, we can all sit here and say, if there's a full application goes in and it follows the right procedure and they still think it should be there, then fine. I don't think it will. They also used a comparison to their sand batching plant in Ipswich, so I got on Google Earth. The one in Ipswich is away from main areas of residents. I think I don't know whether they've got a harbour, but it's definitely out on a limb. It's a port, not a harbour. It's interesting because I then went to look at their planning permission for Brett's, and they started there in 1993. There are 4 full applications for Brett's to increase the type of work they do there, and they were all full applications. So I don't know how this one is a minor application. I then looked at London Borough of Newham, have got a cement batching plant there, and I've actually, because that went through a full application, it had an environmental impact assessment, and I actually downloaded the conditions that had to be put in place. And that's the main thing that worries me as a resident of Ramsgate, not just for the humans, but for the wildlife and the marine wildlife. We've presently got a sand batching plant. We don't know who the responsible authority is that's monitoring them. Is it TDC? Is it KCC? Where are the conditions, the health and safety conditions that should be put in place if there'd been a full application and an environmental impact assessment? If none of those are there, then I think there are frequent breaches of health and safety. A boat came in on, I think it was was it Tuesday night? He came in on Tuesday, that boat was still working, it was still offloading gravel at 8:30 at night. 2 mornings the week before, that cars were leaving the cement batching plant before 7 o'clock in the morning, and under this application they will work from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, 6 days a week. On a Saturday they'll go until 1 o'clock. I think they're already breaching whatever they're breaching, but if there are no controls in place, nobody's keeping an eye on them. So I am just a resident of Ramsgate, and I think it's good that we're pulling together. I think it's about time that the tail wags the dog. I still have an issue with inequality of funding. I don't just want more funding for Ramsgate. I want to make sure there's funding for Ramsgate, Margate, Broadstairs and the villages, and I think it's about time we as a group of people in Ramsgate need to stand up and be counted. So like Janet said, there will be further things that we need to do.
Thank you, Becky, and I'd like to say I wish you'd been teaching me. The man over there will know what I said. I was in detention every night. Following on from Becky's observations there, I think it's important as well, while we're talking, and it leads on from Janet's point about a fighting fund, we have to get deadly serious about how we address this as a community and on an ongoing basis. It's no good having these meetings where we all go rah, 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 fade off into the night and then go, well, what's anyone doing about it? There's a well-known saying that motivational speakers often quote, which is, if it's to be, it's up to me. And that's the responsibility, I believe, of every single one of us, but with open and honest communication between us and sharing this information and bonding as a community. This could be the start of a real turnaround for Ramsgate, where instead of the bickering and the various projects all trying to outdo one another and complaining, I think, let's have a clean sheet, let's get stuck into this, but let's make sure that we get the correct support, because shouting alone doesn't get the job done. We've got a speaker coming up in a little while, which is our MP, and to have the backing of our MP, I think is going to be very, very important, because this is going to need to be escalated to levels that are not just on a local basis. There will be the Fighting Fund bucket doing the rounds in a little while. Please, as generous as you can be. If it's 50p, it doesn't matter. If you can't afford, then it doesn't matter, because we're all in this together. But we will need to be raising funds and on an ongoing basis so that we can address this on a serious and sensible basis. So, with which, in addition to the Brett situation, and there's a lot more information, but as Janet said, we've got a Facebook page which is Nothing Concrete at Port Ramsgate. There will be some form of web presence set up, and we're trying to work on a media initiative so that those who aren't internet friendly and don't use it can actually get access. But I'd like to ask everyone here to get the word out there, because there's an awful lot of people that don't live in the Facebook bubble, and it's vitally important that we get this message out there. Now I'm going to hand over to the next speaker, which is, again, very well known to some of you. He may need the mic, he may not.
He won't.
Former councillor Ian Driver. Ian's got a reputation for flushing out what isn't good. Yeah? He's going to talk to you about an additional issue that is on top of this Brett's issue, and it is a very, very serious matter, because it goes to show why we have been, how should we say, not consulted on Brett's. By the way, very, very quickly, if I can just take the time, with regard to consultation, People Power Works. The deadline for Natural England to make submissions to KCC with regard to this Brett application was last Tuesday. And you may think, the excellent news was that due to the, and I quote Heather Twizzell from Natural England, the unprecedented volume of emails and response of the people of Ramsgate, that deadline was extended to this weekend. This campaign is already working, and again, we can make this work, but we will be, please, imploring every single one of you to make representation in the next 24 hours to Natural England so that they can really show the numbers and the feeling in this community to KCC, because I think we're all sick and tired of being sick and tired of being the mushrooms of Kent and kept in the dark and fed a bit here and there, aren't we? With which, I'll hand you over to Ian Driver. Pin your ears back, folks, because this isn't good.
Thanks, John. Yeah, good evening, everybody. I'm not going to repeat the technical things that have just been talked about, and thanks to everyone for the hard work that they've done in looking at planning law and poring over lots of complex documents. Some fantastic research has been done there, which really underlines the strength of the case that we've got to stop this happening. It's just sad that for the second time in 18 months we're having a large public meeting in Ramsgate to try to stop a development at our port that in any definition is going to be polluting, dirty and nasty. And it really is a shame that we've got to come back again and again and again to try to stop that. And that's what I particularly want to talk about before I get onto the other news, about one of the areas, or some of the areas, that have developed a situation whereby time after time, nasty polluting developments right in the centre of what is the jewel in the crown of the tourist trade in Ramsgate come back all the time. And really, it's about time that the powers that be at Ramsgate Town Council, at Thanet District Council and at Kent County Council make up their mind once and for all what the economic future of Ramsgate should be. And at the moment what we've got is a dog's breakfast of conflicting, contradictory plans and policies which create nothing but confusion. Nobody has grabbed a hold of all the different policies about what can go on inside of Ramsgate and come up with a comprehensive, holistic document that puts it all together and allows us to move forward. And we've got a situation now where the future plans for the port are more or less at war with each other. This year, April 2016, the Ramsgate Economic Plan was published. Not really a good document if you, good document if you've got insomnia, 30 odd pages, but actually I read it for the first time last night, and it is a fascinating document. It says that the long-term economic future of Ramsgate should be a tourist-based, visitor-based economy. That's what it says, and a lot of work went into producing that report, and I believe it cost somewhere in the region of £10,000 that was funded by the government. And then we've got policies about our local environment that John from the Ramsgate Society has already mentioned. We've got the 9 special environmental designations that our coastline and our seafront and our marine areas have been designated by the central government, by International Ramsar Convention, which again ties in with the fact that the future of our town should be looking forward to a situation based on tourism, environmental protection of the fantastic resources that we've got along our coastline, which are not just fantastic, they're unique. I'm unaware of any other seaside place in the country that's got 9 special scientific designations for its marine areas and its coast. But then, we've got Kent County Council's Mineral and Waste Plan from 2013. You've probably never heard of it. It's about 400 pages long. You can download it off the Kent County Council website. It was agreed in 2014. It goes for 15 years, and that plan designates Ramsgate Port as a legally protected area for the loading, unloading and processing of aggregates. That's a policy that was decided by Kent County Council. Then we have another policy. This is the last policy, I promise you. I could find a lot more, but this is the last one. Then we've got something called the Ramsgate Maritime Plan, and that was agreed in 2014. And the Ramsgate Maritime Plan, once again you can download it from Thanet Council's website. It says, and I quote, this is a direct quote from the Ramsgate Maritime Plan, there is scope to handle greater volumes of aggregate which the port will exploit. So, it is, at this moment in time, as we're studying, talking and listening, it is official council policy to promote the exploitation and the expansion of the Brett mineral and aggregate trade at the port. Now, we've heard a lot about planning and the technicalities involved in planning, and that will be so important to the community if we launch challenges and a fight back. But I say the owner of a piece of land is the final arbiter of what happens to that land. Whatever a planning application might say, whatever planning rules might say, if you own that land, you do not need to allow that land to be used for any purpose that you don't disagree with.
Yeah.
So Thanet Council and the Stewart and there's Councillor Campbell here as well. It's a shame that your other 54 colleagues weren't here tonight, because they'd see by one of the biggest public meetings I've been to in a long time that there's 200 plus people here now who would say to Thanet Council, for goodness sake, go back to Brett, say we've reconsidered the way you want to use our land and we're not going to let you do it. The other things I want to say, and I will get onto something worse in a moment, if it's entirely possible, I talked about the mineral plan. I talked about the maritime plan. And both of those plans were agreed by council officers and were agreed by councillors of all political parties in 2014 and 15, but there was no public consultation whatsoever on the mineral plan. It would have been possible when the mineral plan went out for consultation for our Kent County councillors and our council officers to have organised a public consultation about whether or not you want to see your port as a legally protected dumping ground for aggregates. But not a word was mentioned. No consultation. Then we have the maritime plan, which I just quoted from a moment ago, which seemed to suggest that aggregate was the next best thing to sliced bread. And again, that maritime plan, it was not publicly consulted on. There was consultation, yes. It was behind closed doors, by invitation only, by a select list of people whose faces probably fitted from industry and other things to come in and talk about it. But the general public, the thousands of people in Ramsgate who have got to live with the consequences of the policy-making decisions, were not asked once whether they thought it was a good idea to expand the trade in aggregates at the port of Ramsgate. Not once were they asked. So the decisions that have led to us being here for the second time in 18 months are based on undemocratic, behind-doors secrecy by elected councillors of all parties and council officers. That's wrong. Now I'll go on, and I'll be as quick as I can, and I really am sorry I have to cut so much time. I will be quick. Now I'll go on to the other issue I wanted to raise tonight. 2 days ago, through a Freedom of Information request which I sent to an organisation called the South East Economic Partnership, I'll get that right, I got some information back in an email yesterday morning, and basically, this is breaking news, but Thanet District Council has placed a bid, or should I say placed a bid, back at the beginning of this year to the South East England Economic Partnership, asking the government for the sum of £4.7 million, and then Thanet Council had agreed to top up that £4.7 million with £2 million. I don't know where that's coming from because we told the council his scheme. So £6.7 million requested in total to put into a pot to begin a 3-stage development of the port of Ramsgate. Now, we do, of course, want to develop the port, but we want to be consulted about what that development might be. But I can tell you what that development, that proposed development is, because it's in the email, and I'll be publishing it on my blog site tomorrow morning. Just Google Ian Driver's Thanet, and it will be there for you to see. But that development is an alongside quay. Now, I've never known what an alongside quay is. I think it means a boat can come in sideways and unload into the quay. That alongside quay is designated for bulk cargo, for bringing in and taking off bulk cargo, including aggregates. So that alongside quay is definitely destined for use by Bretts to increase the capacity of the aggregate it intends to process. And then on top of that, they are going to install, and the work that's going on now is separate to this, they want to install a ro-ro double-decker berth. And they want to bring back freight ferries, not passenger ferries, freight ferries to the port of Ramsgate. And they're going to increase the capacity. The plan is to increase the capacity of Ramsgate Port to take 1 million HGV lorries per year. So if you think about a massively expanded port with Bretts pumping out all its pollution, and then you think again on top of that about 1 million HGVs, they'll probably never even reach that number. But even if it was a tenth of that number, if you're talking about massive HGVs with pumping out all their pollution from diesel into the port of Ramsgate, you can bet your bottom dollar that that would be the death of tourism in Ramsgate. And that was done in secrecy. There was no public consultation with anyone who lives in Ramsgate about the refurbishment of the port, about the investment in an alongside berth to make Brett's job easier, about 1 million HGV lorries trundling around Ramsgate day and night, 365 days of the year. No consultation. It was done under the radar, behind closed doors, and this is what we get. And I think that tonight's meeting, the fantastic community response we've got here, the cross-party political unity we have, is the beginning, as John just said, of a very big fight back to stop what's proposed for the port and to protect our town and the environment of our town and the tourist trade. Because I believe, for one, that the future of Ramsgate is not going backwards and industrialising and doing things that failed. We need to be thinking to the future and looking to things, new things that are already succeeding. And as you can see by walking around Ramsgate every day, there is a growth in tourism and the visitor economy. So I'm going to show up now, and thanks for allowing me longer than normal, although I'm never short. I think the Fighting Fund, the cross-community working that's going on here is absolutely fantastic. And what this campaign could do is actually, as John said, really seriously define the future of Ramsgate, not just for ourselves, but for our children and their children, and give us the town we really want. Thank you.
The BBC have broken the news and are covering this quite devastating news actually about the million vehicle movements. But I think given that our concerns about the environment and our beaches and seafront environment, this goes to answer an awful lot of why we have battled to protect that West Cliff. And the woman at the West Cliff sitting down there who has worked extremely hard to make it a much more pleasant environment than it was allowed to be. So thank you. As a little aside, by the way, there is a joint litter pig on Sunday. This is not joking, because we need to gather evidence of what debris there is along that western undercliff. Friends of Ramsgate Seafront and the Ramsgate Society have got a joint initiative this Sunday. One of the areas that we will be doing a clean up and a litter pick is along the western undercliff. If there is anybody that could join us from the pier yard at 10 o'clock, please come and join us, because we will be gathering evidence while we make the environment nicer down there. And again, we're just not going to stand for it. I'm going to shut up and hand over to a gentleman that I think needs no introduction. I know where Craig stands on these issues. I'm very grateful, and I think we all should be, that we have an MP that's as engaged as he is, because we have suffered in the past from lack of engagement. And I'll hand you over, because I think Craig's got quite a lot to say about these various issues. Craig,
well, thank you, John. As you know, I'm here very regularly, and I was looking forward to a nice drink and something to eat this evening, and I'm sure all you were as well. But I think this goes to show the strength of this community, that at very short notice we filled a room. And the sad thing is, we were here, as Ian said, just 18 months ago, when we had a similar crackers project, but under the O'Regan brand, that was wholly rejected by the community. And here we are just a short time afterwards, doing exactly the same thing all over again. Now, Ramsgate has been a troubled jewel over the last 20 years, but it's finding its shine again. We have regeneration on a scale that we haven't seen for a long time, a lot of new money coming in, people actually making a big investment in our towns. Just a couple of weeks ago, the first stage of the Coastal Communities bid for £1.7 million, not a great deal of money, but all very, very beneficial, has been approved through the first stage. So we're now going to work to the second stage to deliver those improvements in Ramsgate. You've got Janet, who's been working so hard for so long on her motor house project. We've got the clock house project that the Ramsgate Society are involved with. We've got these jewels of the St Augustine Chapel. We have got so much here, I'm getting frankly sick to death that we're being used as the dump, fag end of business that nobody wants. Now, the planning situation on this site is complicated because of this general permitted development order, and I'm very pleased that Janet has been out measuring the size of things that are there. But what is needed for them to carry forwards is a certificate of lawfulness of proposed use. Now, that will be either permitted or not permitted by KCC as the relevant authority. But given their mineral processing plans that have been published and agreed for the last 2 years, I'm not sure I'm very confident of them giving a strictly unbiased appraisal of where we are. But what I can do is, of course, raise this with the Secretary of State. And I intend the Secretary of State to be made fully aware of what is happening here and what we seriously do not want. I've already written to Paul Carter, the leader of KCC, don't laugh, who's not always deemed to be a great friend of us down here. But I've also written to James Cross, the CEO of Natural England, making sure that he knows my point of view and the strength of feeling of this community. There will need to be, because this is a different type of use than what is there at the moment, there has to be a full environmental audit.
Yes.
Now, that is a great benefit to us. So we've got the opportunity to actually stop this on a number of means, and I'm hoping that the environmental permit process will actually stop this. Now, I'm not new to this type of use of land, and I raised this some 18 months ago when I was on the electoral stump with Ian, and it's funny how often we seem to share electoral platforms. And it's funny, we got on well then, and we seem to be getting on even better of late, because Ian does have a really good nose of sniffing these things out. And I only heard today about this proposed or this already submitted application for South East Local Enterprise Partnership funding, with potentially TDC funding, with all the other capital issues that TDC have. I don't know where they're going to find £2 million, but that's a matter for them. But me as your local MP had no clue that an application had been made to the South East LEP for £4.7 million. Not the first idea. And I don't think that's acceptable, because I want to work in partnership with this TDC. I know they're of a different political flavour, but where they need help, I'm here to help them. But they obviously didn't tell me about this one, because they knew for a fact I would not be helping them on this proposal. But the thought of freight, even if it is just 10% of the potential million, that would be 300 large HGVs passing through the town every day. Now, if they were to go up the tunnel, one might argue, well, that may not be quite so bad. But we live here, we know how often that tunnel is out of use. Quite regularly.
Yeah.
So where would that traffic go? Military Road. Military Road. 40-ton lorries of high weight, high volume, low value would be trundling through on a very regular basis. But I think what Ian said, and he's captured what I've said for a long time, and I said it last time we were all together. This land is Crown Estate land on a long-term, if not perpetual, lease to Thanet District Council. I didn't tell Ian, but I put an application in for his garden to build a little bungalow for myself. Now, if that is approved, Ian will tell me I can't do it. I haven't actually, but I might think about it. Yeah. But the reality is exactly the same here. Thanet District Council effectively own that port land.
Yes.
We don't want it.
No.
You don't want it. Tell Thanet District Council it is not to happen on land that they own. But beyond that, we do need a new thought about what Ramsgate Port is going to be. We've been messing around with that land for far too long. And I'm sorry to say, and I understand the financial situation of TDC, I understand that port and harbour loses over £3 million a year. All of us have to put in £3 million just to support what it does or doesn't do there in maintaining standing buildings. But just to try and get a little bit of rent from some company that will do activities that none of us want is not acceptable. We need a new community plan for that port, because there's one out there. And it should not be dirty industries in the middle of the jewel of South East England that will be so much more. Now, it may be that we need to cross a Rubicon that we've all been dealing with for ages. Will we get a passenger ferry? They know it's here and no one wants it. But it seems that we may be getting massive freight. And that's certainly what no one wants. It's time we had a discussion, should it be something entirely different? And I think we're approaching that time when we need to consider that should be something entirely different that we want, that will attract good jobs, good skills, and something that will make this town flourish once more. So I'm with you every step of the way. I'll fight this with the Secretary of State, I'll fight it with the KCC, and I will make sure that every environmental stumbling block will be in the way of this proposal. Simply, Brett, you're not welcome here, and TDC, you own the land, just say no.
Thank you very much, Craig. He was quick with his thumb, turning it off. I think Janet's trying to catch my attention there. She may have something else she wants to say, and then we'll come over to questions from the floor.
Sorry, this is a quick one. This is about the vehicles and the point that Craig raised about the vehicles going along Military Road. And the reason why I know so much about it is because A, I've become a sado, and B, it's because it affects Project Motorhouse, and as you know, most of you, the frame of that building, the steel frame, is completely rotten and needs to be replaced. And it supports the curtilage of the road. That road has collapsed at one point, okay? So bear with me here. What I was looking into was called Priority Route Networks. And we have two in Ramsgate because of the port. One comes up to the Granville and stops. And one comes through the tunnels. And I looked into seeing whether we could redesignate the B2054, which comes down Military Road, as also being priority route network because it is used once a month when the tunnel is shut. And I was told that would be a huge problem, and the reason being that those arches will not support 40 tons of weight. And a priority route network needs to, a road that is a priority, part of the priority route network needs to have a 40-ton loading. And that doesn't exist. So how the hell they think that once a month they are going to be able to send all that traffic down Military Road when there isn't a, when there's those arches that don't take 40 tons of weight? I don't know.
Thank you, Janet. I think it's worth noting that the reason that the arches are in the use that they are, and the mixed use, which, we've all had debates over and so on. My family business was based down there for many years, and let me tell you, it's not just about the weight on the arches. It's not very pleasant to stand in one of those when you've got a lorry revving its engine, belching exhaust fumes into the door. It's not very pleasant when the sleeping policeman, is that politically correct now? When the speed humps along Military Road mean that 40 tons goes crash and the arches rattle. Why were we given vast sums of money, which Peter, I think you know quite a lot about, for the renovation of those arches, to bring them back into use and to make them suitable to use, to then just destroy them again? They were built in the days when horse and cart they were designed to carry, and it's as simple as that. There's the long-term problem with Motorhouse. It is a complete and utter lunacy, and I think, again, thank you all. I'm going to suggest something, and this is off the cuff that I'm doing this, but in the terms of where do we go from here, I am going to suggest that we reconvene perhaps in 6 weeks. Same venue, we'll book it tonight.
That's Christmas.
Is it?
4 weeks.
4 weeks? If we set another public meeting, well, let's set the date now, and let's have some joined up action as well as joined up thinking. I don't know how that sits with Craig and the other panel members here. Yeah? There's a working party, and we would welcome people. If any of you do have professional experience that you feel you could bring to the table, please speak to us afterwards, because we need to reach out for that. But if we book a meeting a month from now, we can then address matters and see how we go from there, yeah? Would that be good with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, questions from the floor. I think Davina's got one.
Yeah, simply here. The biggest crane in the country is in the port.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that, but we know what it's doing, it's repairing and doing whatever. But I heard today what it costs, and Stuart Piper probably knows.
Can't hear you.
I heard today what it costs. £7,000 a day. A day.
Oh, yeah.
The question, if I can, I'm conscious of my voice being a bit boring, but at the end of the day, Davina is raising the issue that the crane working on berth 3,
The biggest crane in the country.
which apparently is the biggest crane in the country. It looks good fun to drive. Apparently the cost is 7,000 a day.
And it's here for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So they must justify that money because they've got something else coming up.
We're told that there is expected roll-on, roll-off freight movements anticipated, which in themselves may not be that bad on one berth because if it brings some revenue. But is it the tip of the iceberg again?
Much larger than the normal ferry.
However, there is a vast amount of money being spent down there, and I suspect that yet again, with no consultation or mention to the public, all members indeed. All members indeed, and thank you for that, Peter, because I think it's all we all do tend to attack all the time, but rest assured, we believe there is a little bit of a, how shall we say, a fiefdom or a cabal system operating again, because there seems to be an awful lot of councillors and elected representatives that are not able to represent us because they don't know what's going on. So, anyhow, yes please. The timescale is now.
But how do we go about?
Right. The expected decision date for the Brett's application is actually the 25th of November. However, James Bickle, who's the planning officer dealing with it, has asked that submissions are made by this weekend. We have been told two different stories because they say one thing on their website and then they'll tell you another. We were originally told that they would take objections from the public until the day before the anticipated date of decision.
If we get a scary lawyer, how quickly would this need to happen?
Scary lawyer's a different issue because we're challenging the process then, but at the moment we must follow the process that they're asking us to, which is basically that anybody in this room who hasn't already objected, just get your objection in there. By email.
Go on to the KCC website, put KCC planning, go into planning, put comment on a planning application, then put in Port of Ramsgate and it will come up. And you can object there, or what I did is then emailed to the email address that was there. I've done it two different ways. Do it this weekend if you can.
There seems to be some discrepancy about when because again, there's discrepancy because due procedure isn't being followed and this is trying to be steamrolled through. It's very difficult to actually put a formal objection together when the framework isn't correct in the first place. So what we would just ask everybody to do is to get on that KCC website. Let's crash their server tomorrow by deluging with complaints. If you would like to know the key points to make to base your complaint on, those points are available on the Nothing Concrete at Port Ramsgate site. Peter.
At TDC, planning applications can be called in, therefore planning officers cannot make the determination. The decision is then made in public. Does that apply at KCC? So can one of our KCC councillors that represents Ramsgate call this application in so the officer doesn't make the decision, has not got the authority to make the decision, and would have to be made by the KCC Planning Committee in public?
I thought you were doing an impression of what I said all last week then, Peter. Hang on, let me answer Peter's question first, please. Yeah. No, in this instance, and this is because they're applying for a certificate of lawful use. This is not a full planning application. What is worth noting is that everywhere else in this country that Bretts have operated batching plant or aggregate washing and handling, they have been made to put a full planning application in. The only site in the UK that Bretts have been able to steamroller it and under the radar is TDC and KCC. Sorry, it's KCC. KCC are the body for aggregate handling. However, that we do have evidence back from 2010 that a certain individual who was very close to O'Regan was letting things go on a nod and a wink. Yes, it's that name again. Ron. Sorry, I will come back to you.
I'd like to say many residents here tonight must remember when the arches was all dug up and reinforced with concrete over the top of Military Road. Anyone remember? Over 20 years back. They did that. They said the water was leaking through. They wanted to solve the water problem from underground springs. But it wasn't. They was taking 40-ton lorries up there then. So they reinforced those arches. and they will take 40-ton lorries up there again.
At what cost to the rest of the structure though? Because although it may be
they
strong
go
enough
round
on
the
top-
Paragon. That's the bad corner there.
But the Paragon's
The
there.
cliff's already fallen once there.
That corner's really bad. That's going, that road's nearly gone.
If KCC have got this sort of embargo on the site down there, does that mean it shut the door should someone want a passenger ferry to run from there? Or if we
No,
want a
but they
top-class
fully expect a
marina,
passenger ferry to come into the middle of a building site, basically.
how about if we want a top-class marina? And they've got this huge, great industrial site there.
Ron, you would be showing vision and common sense. Craig's Ramsgate Regeneration Alliance, this has been much discussed at that lagoon there that the breakwaters form. Personally, I'd like to see the whole lot go back to nature because it ruins the ecology of the bay. But the breakwaters there form a lagoon. What could be better for marine-based leisure, jet skis and so on? The port is not good for building, heavy building on, but there could be low-density leisure and related facilities, maybe small, single-storey hotels and so on. It could be used for any number of very profitable and non-polluting people kind activities, for want of a better description.
The other thing, should we get a bad winter like 1963, that will shut. You won't get any boats in there, not big deep draft boats. It'll be full of sand. Because the design of the ferry terminal was wrong, right from the start.
From day one, Ron, you know.
There's no culverts through, let the tide through, keep the water agitated to stop the silt. And there's no protection from the northeast gales. Ramsgate sand is all coming towards the ferry terminal, where we are paying £100,000 a year to have that dredged away. I've done a Freedom of Information request. They spent, in the last 7 years, £673, I think. 6,000.
673,000, which is why they're so desperate, obviously, to bring some rent in. This gentleman, by the way, was the dredger master at Ramsgate for years, and he knows that stuff. Please do, Ron.
Ramsgate Harbour, the time I was down, I've done every job except the harbour masters. The Invicta landing stage at the end of the pier is now derelict. No more Waverley trips, no more boats coming in taking pleasure trips. Number one
That's a
slipway.
quayside berth, by the way.
Yeah, the Waverley used to come in there once, so I had a trip from there 2 or 3 times. Number one slipway, 2 and 3, were built by the Admiralty, smashed up, all the winding gear that was good for another 50 years, thrown out in the salt air, rotting. I don't know what they've done this last week, someone said they'd taken it away.
All destroyed.
A huge great building at the top of
Historic
number one
England.
slipway, like a carbuncle, stood up there, as Prince Charles would say. And then, when the hovercraft ran, concreted over the working beach that the fishermen used to put their boats on, that's all breaking up now, laying rotten. Then we had the container ro-ro boats come. They dug all the big granite blocks up from the bottom of the harbour, pulled them up in the heat and left them. They're still there now. The ro-ro people have gone. They drilled all the nice granite bollards off, snapped them off, got rid of them, so that the articulated lorries could come along the crosswall. It's all finished now. The watch house that should have had preservation order on, smashed that up so the lorries could get round. They blocked all the sluices up. The gullies are now full of mud. When I worked for the corporation, we put all new doors and guides and winding gear ourselves because we had the people to do it and the know-how. Now they have to go outside firms to do it. They can't pay for it. Then a bit further on, the camera obscura on the West Pier, knocked that down. That should have been preserved. Built port control there, thousands of pounds. After a little while, took it away and put it back on the East Pier. More waste. Now they're stuck for money. Now the ferries are stopped. They don't know which way to turn for money, so they're trying to get Brits in there. They'll shut the door on a lot of other things if they do.
Yeah, they do.
Well said. Those of you who don't know, this is how fascinating the harbour is. I think it was the 40s onwards, wasn't it, Ron? So?
Yes, 50s onwards.
50s onwards.
Not that old.
There's a lady there. That gentleman there, he must be getting cramp in his arm, so please. You're next, madam.
Does anyone know if there's any link between Brett's ambitions and the 38-degree petition that went up today regarding proposed dredging of Goodwin Sands?
The Brett's proposal is specifically for sea dredged aggregate. It must be. Actually, Ian's got something to say. I'll give it a break.
I think it would be very safe to say that the Brett's development will be related to what's going to go in the Goodwin Sands in the next year. For those of you who don't know, you've got a massive expansion of Dover Port beginning in 2017-18. It's a 4-year programme, £200 million of investment, increasing the freight, the passenger ferries and the cruise line. So it makes you wonder why they even want to touch Ramsgate Port, because it'll never be able to compete with Dover, but that's another by the by. But the way that they're going to construct that port, and there's documents on the Dover Harbour Board website, hundreds of pages long, but the way that they're going to build that port and those expansions is to dredge the Goodwin Sands. And they're going to dredge 2.5 million cubic metres of aggregate material from the Goodwin Sands to make the concrete and everything that's necessary. To use marine dredged aggregate, not only does it destroy the ecosystem and the environment of the Goodwin Sands, and all hell is letting loose on 38 degrees, and all the environmental protection societies in this area are jumping up and down, and rightly so, because of the damage it will do, and then the marine archaeology. But to use marine dredged aggregate, you can't use it to make cement, you've got to wash it because it's covered in salt. Right. And to clean and wash 2.5 million cubic metres of aggregate dredged from the Goodwin Sands, which is only a few miles away from Ramsgate, you're going to need an aggregate washing facility. You're probably going to need 4 or 5. There's probably going to be some aggregate washing facilities at Dover, and then there's going to be some more at Ramsgate. So I think that's one of the reasons why Brett's have moved in. Brett's are a massive organisation, let nobody tell you otherwise. It's not a local company, it's one of the biggest aggregate producers in the country. Last year alone it made 4.5 million pre-tax profit. It's got 30 odd sites in southeast England. It's huge. So of course Brett, and it also does its own marine aggregate dredging. So of course Brett's, being very clever business people, want to strategically locate their plant to Ramsgate Port, right next door to where all the actions are going to be going on over the next 4 years. They'll make millions.
Ian's just mentioned a very good point there actually, and that's the fact that if you look at Southern Water's water supply maps, we are water scarce. We are extremely at risk, and it's why our local plan is vital that we get it into place, because we're under threat, if you don't know, of massive overdevelopment. There is insufficient water. When the library caught fire, they had to put bowsers down the harbour because the mains would not give the fire appliances enough water to put the fire out, and that's some years ago now. We are water, we're at real risk of this. Where are the millions of gallons of mains water that are referred to in the application going to come from? It's absolutely ludicrous. And again, that's another environmental concern. So if people would like to get onto Southern Water and demand to know where this water's coming from, that would also be extremely helpful. Yeah, there's a lady with a blue there who's popped up and down a couple of times, and then I'll come back to it.
Why does the TDC apply for this funding without asking the public? Can you repeat that?
The question's to you, Stuart, and the lady says, why did the TDC apply for the funding without speaking to the public? You happy to come up?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm not really quite sure why you think I might be able to answer it. After all, I've only an elected member. TDC own the land, and I suppose it's a bit like me owning my house. I might have tenants living in my house, but if I want to make improvements to my house, I don't necessarily tell the tenants. I was unaware until we heard in this meeting that that application had been made. I don't infer anything by that, except that is an honest answer from me. I don't wish to make myself unpopular here at all, but I, along with all our enthusiasm, we do need to remain on message and actually fight the battles we can win and be more pinpoint accurate with our challenges to whether it's TDC, RTC or KCC. We need to be more pinpoint accurate in what we're doing rather than just throw out masses and masses of objections. I am aware of some £600,000 which is being spent on one of the berths at Ramsgate Port because I was specifically asked to approve some additional spend. The assessment has been done by TDC, the landowners. There is one of the berths that is crumbling and falling apart, and whatever you do there, whether it's passenger ferries or speedboats, that berth has to be repaired. And please, may I advise you that the £600,000 that's being spent on that berth is absolutely necessary, regardless of what they then go on to do. So we have to be careful and accurate with our challenges to them, and I genuinely hope you didn't mind me saying that to you this evening. The berths are being repaired regardless of what the future holds, because if they don't, they will crumble, they will fall into the sea, and just as none of us here would allow that to happen to our own homes, TDC cannot allow that to happen to the port if they intend to make good use of it, particularly with passenger ferries, which is still a genuine hope on the horizon. Thank you for the question, though.
Trish, please. Yeah, come to you.
He said I didn't know.
Well, I think he did answer it in as much as he doesn't know either, which speaks volumes. Trish Hartley, please.
I was just going to make exactly the same point, actually. We have an issue in this area about the information that goes to our elected members. This has come up over Pleasure Arm.
Or lack of.
We appear to have a group of officers who go ahead and do their own thing. These guys and their colleagues are supposed to be the bosses of those officers. When I worked in a local authority, I wouldn't have got away with just putting in applications right, left and centre without getting them checked and approved. We really have an issue, but it's great to have Stuart and Peter here, but I really think what we need to be sending them away with from this meeting is our wish that they should, as our elected members, take some control over this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We have we're not going to let this become a
political meeting, but what there is a very, very real rot, we believe. We have senior executives of that council that think they are a fiefdom and will do whatever they like. And it's about time. Again, the only people that are going to hold them to account are the elected members supported by us. We must work together.
It's disciplinary, John. It needs to be made disciplinary.
We need-
other council in the country.
We need the advice and the input of people like yourself, and there are other ex-LGO local government officers in the room that we would like to consult with, because I think that as a team we can actually help the elected members hold these people to account, because they have been running wild for far too long, and enough's enough. So if you are an LGO or a lawyer or you have relevant experience, please speak to us afterwards. Gentleman with the glasses.
I've been raising my head for a long time.
Patience, Anne, patience.
Sorry, Anne. You're next. Gentleman with the glasses.
Tim Garver, I stood as MP to stop the pollution, stop the corruption and stop the construction. And I'm standing for KCC leader next year in May. So I'm completely opposed to this. The first I'd heard of it was on Sunday when I saw this meeting's poster and the RTC proposal. This feels really, really fishy. It feels like something big is going on. The BBC News I saw tonight, just by accident, didn't just mention the Brett activity, didn't just mention development at the port, all of that's massive by the sounds of it. It mentioned at Manston huge warehouses as well, and also a 300-metre tower. This goes back to O'Regan, that type of proposal. It also goes back, some of you will remember Chinagate, with the massive warehouse development there. And there's also at Pegwell Bay, still going through consultation, the Nemo pylons, that's as tall as the Shard, that none of us have ever approved or seen anything of. And we've also got down at the port and the harbour, the only Royal Harbour in Britain and listed, Grade 1 listed. We've got the destruction of the slipways that the gentleman mentioned. I don't know how that's crept back in again, because it was a cafe, then it was a Hornby Centre, and then it was a porthole restaurant thingy. Well, Jack's back. Jack's the builder, he's going to take control of that area, and he's going to build something. And that's what we're getting with Brett. But it's much, much bigger than we've all realised. None of us ever heard of this. None of us have ever approved it. None of us want it. But here we are yet again. And it comes back to our councillors, it comes back to the MP. We pay these people to make sure that we don't have to do it for them. Well, hell, we're all going to do it tomorrow. We're going to get on to Natural England. We're going to get messed about by KCC. We're going to get bounced around by someone else. We need to make sure this doesn't happen, not this time and not again. And that comes down to P45 reform with the civil servants, and it's voting out and getting rid of our councillors because they're incompetent. Our MP, bless him,
not all of them. Not all of them. Tim, thank you for your point. Let's keep it sweet. Tim, let's keep it sweet. Non-political, and you're next. The lady who's not on. Sorry.
I was under the impression, having read recently in the papers, that because it was finally designed as a burial ground from what happened during the Second World War, they couldn't go dredging. So if Brent is trying to get aggregate from the Goodwin sands, maybe we could get again with the people that have been fighting for stopping the dredging in the Goodwin sands for the port of Dover. And then the more of us we are, the better we get.
You're absolutely right, Alan. I think it's worth noting that the 38 Degrees petition has had over 10,000 signatures at this afternoon. It is being posted and shared, and in fact I put it on the Friends of Ramsgate front this afternoon, which is why I know the numbers. It is a separate issue. The permission that they're going for that, and that I believe 10,000 signatures means it's got to be debated, if not referred. I think we may need some more. But again, please, 38 degrees refers to the critical point of an avalanche at which it slides, and we all need to put our weight on it. So, please, Craig.
Just wanted to make a point about the use of our port. And I said at the beginning of what I said earlier on, was we seem to be at the back end of every rough old trade that seems to come our way. And that rough old trade, one of them, which requires some serious discussion about what is our port going to be for, is of course the live animal export trade, where we've got the scruffiest ship probably ever designed for the open sea, in scruffy conditions, doing a trade that none of us want. And for that reason, I've listened to what you've all said, and listened to Ian and his excellent campaigners. Now I've got a second reading of a bill in Parliament this Friday to change the Ports and Harbours Act. And I'm hoping it will get a fair wind and will go through, and that would allow a local council-owned port to actually exempt that type of trade at their discretion. And I'm pretty sure that discretion locally would be, we don't want it here. So it's another step.
Thank you, Craig, and that does answer that there are people actively, there are councillors here this evening, we've got our MP here this evening. This is not just us and them, this is about getting rid of the rot, but there are some good people around, and we must respect that, please. Right at the back, I can see a hand waving just about. I must get my lenses updated.
Will there be links to all the people we're supposed to contact on your site?
Yes, they're already there. There's a pinned post at the top and it will give you heather.twizel@naturalengland.org.uk and so on. No, they're all there listed for you. The only thing, pick out the points that are relevant to them and keep it. You can keep it concise and refer to the fact that they are already aware of the many issues of the community and the legal points. You don't have to go into a great long list. Becky wrote a superb letter that I think is so comprehensive. If we just say what Becky said, you'll be fine.
Not word for word.
Yes. Did you want to say first? Who are you pointing at? Lady at the back there, please, in front of Andy.
Minimal criteria, was it the case that all of those other plants existed and got permissions before this relaxation came in? And if that's the case, then if we are technically down to, and we shouldn't be technically down to anything, because this shouldn't be the way that life should be with your councils and Kent Council and us, the residents and business investors and everything else around here, that if it comes down to technicalities, of the fact of whether it meets the criteria for permitted development. I hate to be depressing, but I so hope that Janet is right about 15 metres, because what I feared about that, I don't know to what extent the industrial permitted development differs from the domestic one, but I do remember helping somebody who was outraged with an extension under permitted development to do with residential, to discover, and I can't remember exactly, but it was something about the height didn't include the roof. The maximum was actually not including the roof. That didn't count. And I know
It certainly does now.
certainly parapets and things like that don't count in terms of height now on permitted developments. So residentially, if it's the same with the industry and they're going to say no, that's a protrusion, it's a chimney with safety railings around it and it doesn't count, then that one might not work. And the other thing that totally depresses me is that that left just does it materially affect the appearance of the premises, which as it stands is just going on the subjective opinion of a planning officer, and I don't quite know where he was walking around Ramsgate to decide it didn't. But that I thought, well, there's no definition of appearance in there, so if you look at that as saying, does it make much difference to how the site appears, that you can find it that it appears very ugly, i.e. in appearance. It appears can also mean it appears noisy, because it will be. It appears to look like a factory, which it will do, because it will look like an open production line, and that maybe we could get them on that criteria for permitted development. But having heard tonight about what's been going on with Thanet and Kent, that it seems to be a positive strategy and policy to make Ramsgate into an industrial zone.
Yes.
I don't think they'll be listening.
Then it's up to us to make them listen.
We made them.
It's up to us to make them listen. I take on board about permitted development. The legislation has been around for a while. I can't quote whether the other Brett sites were established. I believe some of them will have been after permitted development. However, whatever the precedents on those sites, this is our fight. This is our fight. We will have to segregate various aspects of it. But be aware, please, that Natural England, whilst they can take our observations on the application or the application for lawful use for the aggregate washing and processing, they cannot make comment on the batching plant and what's already there, because that's already there. However, we can take it to the Environment Agency with the evidence, for instance, of Janet's...
And I've already done so.
No comment. Well done, Janet. That's the thing. What we have to do is deluge these bodies so that they are well aware, because although it sounds like rabble-rousing, we're not. But look at the impact of Natural England. Craig, I didn't know, had written to the Chief Executive, but with our MP writing to the Chief Executive and the volume of objections from us, people power is forcing democracy. They have had to put back the deadline for it, and let's keep that pressure up, but let's pile it on more and more, and let's get the message out there.
John.
And I'm sorry at the back there, it's very dim from here, so you're not being ignored.
John, you got...
John Walker would like to say a word, please.
Thanks, I'm sorry my voice is shot to pieces, but there's just 2 points I want to make. First of all, this matter of whether the application being a certificate of lawful development can be called in by the members. We were rather told that it couldn't, but I'm not so sure about that, because I think, well, I know of a case in Canterbury, for example, where an application was made for a certificate of lawful use. The parish council objected and got the local member at the city council to get it called in, and it was called in, and it was discussed at the committee meeting. So I think the precedent can be called in, and I think our county councillors should request it to be called in, and if they say it can't be, they should state what their reasons are.
Sharon Thompson has written Trevor Shonk a long letter, the head of KCC Planning, telling him basically to get lost. It can't be called in.
Well, I've seen that they can be called in, and I think to be honest, councillors at KCC could call it in if they were so minded. They've just got to be told to do it, basically. The second thing is, we heard earlier, just 2 points, John, if I can. The second thing we heard earlier, both from Craig and from Ian, that what we need in Ramsgate is our own community plan, a plan for the town that the community feel that they could support and so on. Now, such a plan is being worked on, actually, because under the Localism Act 2011, parish and town councils have the right, if they want to exercise it, to produce their own what's called a neighbourhood plan. And Ramsgate Town Council have decided to do that. And about a year ago, those of us who are part of the team that are working on it, we have to get it registered with Thanet District Council, which we did, and they have to approve the boundary of the neighbourhood plan, which they have, and it includes the whole of Ramsgate. So we've been working on this for about a year, and the areas that are going to be covered are the economy, the built environment, open spaces, traffic and transport, all those issues that we're very involved in. And part of our coastal communities bid, which Craig referred to, we put in a sum of money for a proper consultation process to do with this plan. And if we get that money, and we'll know, I think, towards the end of this year, we'll be doing this consultation early next year, and I hope you will all engage in it, because it's your plan, it's up to you to say what you want. And the council have to take into account when they determine planning applications. So you have the opportunity now to do something about it.
Thank you, John. There's some people with cramp at the back there, but I'd just like to point something out that, with regard to calling it in, Stuart, who is, well, I'll let Stuart explain what he's done, because he has demanded in writing that this is called in, and if it's possible within the legislative framework.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, I have formally requested of both our KCC representatives that this is formally called in. I was advised it didn't qualify because of permitted development. I have not accepted that, and along with Peter Campbell, we are both of the same mind. I have formally requested it be called in, and I'm waiting to hear whether or not they're going to acquiesce to my request.
I think that, again, it's important to know that apart from being here, there are a number of councillors that are aware of the concerns and are supporting the community. I think being here tonight speaks volumes. Gentleman right at the back, before your arm drops off.
I was going to ask two questions. One about the scary lawyer. I sent an email to James Bickle, given the ambiguity of the legislation and planning provisions and responsibility, whether he'd taken legal advice on the matter, and if so, whether he would share that legal advice. I've yet to hear back from James Bickle, But I think that if you have to take legal advice, that is potentially something that can be acted on legally before the decision.
That's a very interesting point, and whether the advice is external or from KCC's 151 officer, so that probably needs clarification as well, because legal advice from within I have my own views on.
Secondly, it strikes me that it's just roughly following on from such matters, which is that if you do work for if you are a council official, be it a KCC or a local council or a town council, you have a responsibility to advise your elected members when they should consider consulting the public and involving public consultations. And I was thinking that's something else that ought to be followed up with James Bickle and the planning, KCC planning, to ask them to release what advice, if any, they gave their elected members who they're responsible to on such matters. Because it must be available on freedom of information and nothing else, so there's no reason for it not to release it.
The question has been asked, whether it's been asked formally with an FOI, I don't know, but having said that, it will be going off as a freedom of information request tomorrow, because there was a statutory consultation period, and again, without being political, and we don't always agree, but we've got Peter Campbell to thank for flushing this out, because otherwise this would have gone by under the radar, and the first any of us would have known was when the plant arrived. So, very good point. Let's get down to that, because what we can't have is a re-election next year of any individual that's let this community down and put us in this situation in the first place. Or indeed any local government officers from town level upwards, because there's things being looked into there. Rebecca, sorry, you said they're all quiet.
Just a small point, it's not really, it's a case of 200 metres, but my understanding is that Janet and Becky live probably within 300 metres.
Yeah.
Yet their application for this use of development is for more than 500 metres. And I've spoken to somebody today who dismissed that. They're not here this evening. And to me, that again is something that they could be considered deceitful in their application. So we perhaps need to find someone that can measure that as the profile. So that
Would that have been an elected member or an officer or somebody?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, but they're not here today.
Well, they wouldn't be, because that's misfeasance, which is a criminal offence. So let's have a look, shall we?
As I say, they felt that it was over 500 metres. That's all they said. They said it was 300.
I spoke to an elected member the other day and told him that we were gathering, without being corny, concrete evidence, but I advised him in the interest of transparency that Janet had got cement dust and so on, because they claimed to have visited the port and found nothing. His response was, I don't think so. So I said, well, we have concrete evidence, and all he kept saying was, I don't agree with you. So,
Let's get a sample.
heads will roll, truth will out. Look out for the hashtag truth will out.
That's at one end of the Western Undercliff, and this is from the other end.
Have you got video evidence, Jan? You know, so somebody in the newspaper beside you and saying where you are
No.
and what time it was?
This is why, and I'm sorry to cut in, Janet, this is why I believe our litter pick and clear up on Sunday could be most enlightening. And please, if any of you are available, good little plug for the Ramsgate Society, because they started it, not me. But we'll be convening at the clock tower at 10 o'clock, and everything you need will be provided. Could be a nice little Sunday walk in the rain or the sun. But I was just saying, just quickly, before we've got one or two going, Margarita, while we've been talking, has managed to rebook this room for the 1st of December at 7 o'clock.
Where's the bucket?
The bucket's at the back. Andy, you got the bucket? Put the bucket round. Go on. Right.
I'll just run over and leave.
Anybody further questions?
Is there anybody in the room who has already complained officially about About the, no, I meant
Batching plant.
about the batching plant, about the cement. You did. Great, George. Anybody else who complained about the batching plant before the recent events? No. Okay, just me then.
Well, we did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, that's true.
Peter and I did.
You can set up a fighting fund account that we can find for donations.
There will be. We visited.
We're in the process of setting
We're in
it
the
up.
process of doing that. We visited the bank yesterday, but there may be an existing account which will enable us to start gathering quicker.
What would be find the details of that?
That's where, if you've left your details with us, we'll update you, and it will be also published online on the Facebook page. And as I say, I think we need to put a web page up as well, just for information. Thank you for your time, everyone. If any of you have got questions that are unanswered, please come and talk to us afterwards. Okay. However, this room is booked for the 1st of December for a follow-up.
Thanks for all.
Thank you very much.